It was an ordinary evening at the upscale restaurant Le Ciel, where whispers of its impeccable service and exclusive clientele had traveled far and wide. Yet within its opulent walls, no one could have predicted that a single, seemingly inconsequential interaction would spiral into something far more profound. A young waiter named Charlie, his crisp white shirt gleaming under the dim chandelier light, approached a table for two in the corner. The restaurant buzzed with soft conversations, the clink of fine glassware, and the aroma of gourmet dishes wafting through the air. But Charlie had one focus in mind: the man sitting at the table, Keanu Reeves, of all people. His dark hair and unassuming demeanor could easily be mistaken for a man simply seeking a quiet night out. But Charlie wasn't interested in the quiet, humble celebrity. Instead, he was annoyed. He had his own personal opinions on the rich and famous, and Keanu, who had come alone to enjoy his meal in peace, became the unfortunate target of his frustrations. "Excuse me, sir," Charlie began, his tone sharp. "Are you going to be ordering any time soon, or are you just here to soak up the ambience?" The words hung heavy in the air. Little did Charlie know, the man he was addressing owned Le Ciel, the very restaurant he worked in. Charlie's words were meant to be a harmless jab, a way to take down a celebrity in front of the crowd, proving that he wasn't starstruck like everyone else in the room. But as soon as the sentence left his lips, a cold chill swept through the room. Keanu, who had been quietly browsing his menu, paused. His eyes, deep and calm, slowly met Charlie's. There was no anger, no outrage, only a moment of silent recognition that made the waiter uneasy. "Is there a problem?" Keanu's voice was low, but every syllable carried weight. The air seemed to thicken. The staff, who had been subtly eavesdropping, froze. They all knew Keanu's reputation as one of the most humble and generous actors, but none of them had ever seen him confront someone with such quiet intensity. Charlie's heart skipped a beat. The moment stretched painfully. He had never seen Keanu up close before, didn't even know who he was at first. But now, standing there, facing the reality of his mistake, he could feel the tension building. A few tables nearby murmured, some already reaching for their phones. In a split second, the course of Charlie's night, and his future at the restaurant, had changed forever. Charlie stood there, his mind racing, trying to hold on to the mask of confidence he built up over years of serving demanding customers. But now it cracked. His thoughts tangled together, spiraling. What had he just done? The silence felt suffocating, as if the whole room was holding its breath, waiting for something monumental to happen. Keanu raised an eyebrow, waiting for a response, his gaze steady. It wasn't angry, but it was questioning, a quiet challenge. Charlie's heart pounded in his chest. What was he supposed to say? Apologize? Stand his ground? He stammered, fumbling for the right words, but nothing seemed adequate. I didn't mean any offense, Mr. Reeves. But before he could finish, another waiter, Sarah, stepped in quickly, sensing the tension. "Charlie, why don't you take a moment?" she suggested, her voice soft yet firm, guiding him away from the table. Charlie's face flushed crimson as he walked to the back of the restaurant. Behind the kitchen doors, the weight of his blunder settled in. He had insulted Keanu Reeves, a man who could ruin him with a single word. Sarah followed him, her face softening with concern. "You messed up, Charlie, but you can't let it define you. Just think before you act next time." But in that moment, doubt gnawed at him. Could he recover from this? Could he stay at the restaurant? Charlie sat alone in the break room, the hum of the restaurant barely audible in the distance. His fingers drummed nervously on the table. Sarah had given him some space, but the silence was unbearable. He was just about to text his friend, asking for advice on how to quit without causing a scene, when the door opened softly. It was Keanu. Charlie's heart lurched in his chest. Keanu had come to find him. "I've been thinking about our exchange," Keanu said, his voice as calm as ever, though there was a quiet intensity in it now. "I don't want you to think I'm angry, but I need you to understand something." Charlie blinked, unsure how to respond. Was this some kind of joke? Keanu continued, "This restaurant, Le Ciel, it's not just a business for me. It's about creating a space where people feel welcome. I believe in kindness, and I expect that to extend to everyone, including the staff. He paused, then gave a small, knowing smile. I didn't come back here to make you feel bad. I came to tell you, you have the chance to make this right. And I think you'll do more than that. Charlie felt the weight of Keanu's words. Something inside him shifted, a crack in the armor of arrogance he'd worn for so long. For the first time, he realized that his actions had deeper consequences than he'd ever imagined. The next evening, Charlie stood in front of the restaurant, the weight of what was about to happen sinking in. He had spent hours deliberating on his next move, whether to apologize or simply walk away. But deep down, he knew he couldn't run from the consequences of his actions. Keanu had given him a chance to redeem himself, but it was up to Charlie to prove he was capable of change. As the dinner crowd poured in, the energy of Les Seal hummed around him. He knew he had to face Keanu again, but this time, the encounter felt different. There was no hiding behind arrogance or dismissive jokes. This time, he had to own up to his mistake and show that he was ready to be better. Charlie walked up to Keanu's table with a deep breath. He looked the actor directly in the eyes. No avoidance, no nervous twitches. I was wrong last night, he said, his voice steady despite the nerves. And I apologize. I let my personal frustrations get in the way of doing my job, and I took it out on you. Keanu nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I appreciate that, and I'm proud of you for saying it. In that moment, Charlie realized the true lesson. It wasn't just about saving face. It was about growing as a person, no matter how hard the confrontation. The days that followed felt different for Charlie. The weight of his earlier mistake had not vanished, but something within him had shifted. He wasn't just the cocky waiter anymore. He was someone who had learned the importance of humility and respect, not just for others, but for himself. Keanu, ever the gracious figure, continued to dine at Les Seal, but now their interactions were less strained. There was an unspoken understanding between them, one that transcended any awkwardness from the past. Sarah noticed the change too. One evening after a busy shift, she pulled Charlie aside. You've grown, she said, a rare smile crossing her face. I can see it, and I think the customers can too. Charlie smiled, the self-doubt that had once plagued him slowly melting away. He knew he still had a long way to go, but for the first time, he felt the future in his hands. The confrontation with Keanu had pushed him towards self-awareness, forcing him to face his flaws head-on. It wasn't just about the apology, it was about the man he was becoming. As Charlie wiped down the bar at the end of another long shift, he found himself looking up at the stars outside. And in that moment, he finally understood. True growth comes from being able to look at yourself honestly and say, I'm better than I was yesterday.